The stars had always been silent. For thousands of cycles, the Galactic Empire ruled them like they were untouchable gods, distant, cruel, and cold. Their ships darkened skies, their machines crushed resistance before it could breathe, and their laws stretched across every system like an invisible cage. Peace, they called it. But peace under fear was never really peace. The Empire thought it had seen everything, every rebellion, every primitive species, every trick in the book. So when the distress signal came from Sector 9X Theta, no one paid attention at first. Just another pirate raid, or maybe a malfunctioning colony. But when the fleet sent to investigate didn't come back, and I mean, not even a single spark of data returned, the Empire froze. They didn't admit it, of course, not officially. But the way their cruisers suddenly doubled in the outer sectors, how commanders started whispering about something unnatural, they were rattled, and they had every right to be, because what they didn't know was that something had arrived. Something old, and something very, very human. It started with an observation post on the edge of Imperial territory. A small crew, mostly bored technicians monitoring data streams and asteroid activity. One of them, young, quiet, always chewing those awful protein sticks, noticed a blip. A weird ship. Not alien, not Empire, something else. It just sat there. No transmissions, no movement. It looked like it had been through hell. Scars across its hull, pieces of it missing. Glowing blue runes burned into the side like someone tried to write graffiti with lightning. The technician flagged it. Sent it up the chain. Nothing happened. Then the post exploded. It wasn't destroyed by weapons. It just collapsed. Gravity flipped inside out, metal twisted like paper, and the crew was torn apart in a way no one had seen before, not even during the Civil Sector's massacre. What little footage they recovered showed one thing: the strange vessel pulsing like it was alive, surrounded by a humming sound that didn't stop even when the video went black. The Empire sent 3 destroyers next. Big ones, armed to the teeth. Only one returned, and the captain aboard had gone mad. Eyes wide open, pupils blown out like a black hole had swallowed his mind. He kept mumbling something like, "They're back, the forgotten, the first ones." Then he bit off his own tongue. That's when the panic truly began. By the time news reached the Imperial high table, thousands of citizens across nearby colonies were already fleeing in every direction, even if it meant boarding freight haulers with no shields and praying they wouldn't drift into nothing. One broadcast leaked from a merchant ship before it vanished. Just 6 words repeated in a broken voice. The humans have returned, they remember. But how? The humans were supposed to be extinct, wiped out, a failed race, primitive, violent, dangerous, and dealt with centuries ago by the Empire's cleansing protocols. No one ever expected them to survive, let alone come back in something powerful enough to bend gravity and fry AI cores without firing a single shot. The Empire tried to erase it, censor the reports, silence the leaks, but stories started spreading through the underworld, through rebel channels, through the slave camps and the resistance bunkers. They spoke of a ship made of blackened steel and ancient tech. A ship that didn't answer hails but whispered through broken frequencies. A ship that carried a crew who didn't forget what the Empire had done to their kind. They were angry, they were organized, and they were human. On a forgotten moon, in the shadow of the Kepler abyss, a rebellion leader known only as Mera picked up one of the whispers. It wasn't just noise. It was a message, cracked and distorted, but clear enough to send a chill down her spine. We were buried, not broken. Vengeance is orbiting. She turned to her second-in-command, a quiet man with scars across his face like someone had tried to erase his identity. He stared at the screen for a long time before saying, "If they're back, everything changes." And it did. Because the vessel wasn't alone. And this was only the beginning. The message had changed everything. Mayera didn't trust easy. Years in the mud, fighting with scraps and stolen rifles, taught her the Empire never lied unless it was for something bigger. But this wasn't an Imperial trick. No way. This message wasn't from them. It was something older, colder, and more human than anything she'd felt in her bones since childhood. The words echoed through her mind like prophecy. We were buried, not broken. Vengeance is orbiting. She'd grown up hearing whispers about Earth, the myth of it, the cradle of humanity. But in the Empire's records, Earth was a footnote, a ruin, a smudge on the galactic timeline, erased when the humans refused assimilation. They said the Empire wiped them out centuries ago, blasted their planet to cinders for resisting control. Purge protocols, they called it. Clean, efficient, a lesson to all future species. But Mara had always believed there was more. Now that belief was screaming at her in binary code and garbled audio from a ghost ship on the edge of the galaxy. Her second-in-command, the scarred man everyone called Gray, leaned against the console, arms folded, his gaze locked on the display. He didn't say anything for a while. He rarely did. But when he finally spoke, his voice carried something she hadn't heard in a long time. Fear. I saw something like this once, he said, his eyes scanning the corrupted waveform of the message. Back in the Darren wastes, smugglers found a derelict ship drifting near a collapsed star. No markings, no data, just death. No one who boarded it came back out. They said the metal bled. Mayera looked at him sideways. You believe this is the same? He shrugged. I don't believe in coincidence, not in space. Across the room, their tech specialist, a wiry kid named Rill with cybernetic implants instead of ears, turned in his seat. I ran the signal through 6 different decoders, he said. It's not just random static, there's structure. Someone wanted this found. Mayera nodded slowly. Then we find them back. Are you serious? Rill blinked. This isn't just a scavenger hunt. If these are humans, like real ones, what makes you think they'll help us? They're ancient. They're pissed. We don't even know what they are anymore. That's exactly why we need to reach them before the Empire does, she replied. If they're a weapon, we make sure they're aimed the right way. The Empire was already in motion. Fleet Command had dispatched the 77th Legion, an elite strike group known for glassing planets without warning. The ships were sleek and soulless, painted with the Empire's black and silver crest, their engines humming like quiet predators. They weren't coming to study the vessel. They were coming to erase it. But they were already too late. By the time the 77th reached the coordinates, the mysterious ship was gone. No trace, no emissions, nothing but a field of floating metal, wreckage from 3 reconnaissance drones that had arrived ahead of the fleet and apparently shredded themselves trying to scan it. Admiral Theta stood on the bridge of the Oblivion Dagger, teeth clenched, eyes burning with that kind of ruthless arrogance only true-born Imperials possessed. He watched the debris spin lazily outside the viewport and didn't say a word for almost a full minute. Then, finally, he turned to his comms officer. Dispatch orders to the archives, he said. Tell them to release restricted files, everything on humanity. The officer blinked. Sir, that's classified under... Theta snapped his fingers, and the man's neck jerked sideways before a sound escaped his throat. The ship's internal AI, always listening, obeyed instantly. A faint snap echoed as the officer collapsed, spine cleanly severed. Theta didn't even look at him. I said release it, now. Across the Empire, in dusty corners of locked data vaults and forbidden archives, the information started flowing. Reports of failed extermination missions. descriptions of psychological contamination. A chilling phrase appeared again and again in the old files. Human resilience exceeds logic, caution, unpredictable. And deeper still, in the classified black code folders, something even more disturbing appeared. A map. A trail. Leading to a hidden colony long believed lost. A human fallback site. Meanwhile, Myera and her crew were already on the move. Their ship, the Wanderlight, wasn't much to look at. Just another retrofitted mining vessel turned warship. But it was fast, silent, and invisible to most Imperial scans, thanks to tech salvaged from a wrecked Phantom cruiser years back. Myera sat in the cockpit, watching the stars streak by, wondering what kind of monster or savior they were flying toward. They weren't alone either. Other rebel cells had picked up the signal. Not all of them friendly. Some wanted to warn the humans. Others wanted to harness them, or worse, destroy them before the Empire could use them. But Myera had a different idea. She remembered her grandmother's stories. Before the Purge, before the Silence, before the stars stopped belonging to humans, there had been fighters, engineers, thinkers, people who didn't kneel, people who built their own way. If they had survived, they might still be the galaxy's last hope. The signal had a trajectory. It wasn't just a random burst. It was moving. Real calculated a vector leading toward the edge rim, near a system long abandoned due to gravitational instability. It was called Pharos Null, a place where physics got fuzzy and compasses spun like drunks. Perfect hiding spot. 3 days into the journey, they saw it. The vessel. Not cloaked. Not running, just floating there in the center of a warped asteroid field like it owned space itself. No lights, no signal, no weapons drawn. But it hummed, deep and low, a sound that vibrated inside their chests. The Wanderlight stopped a few clicks away. Scans went wild. Rail's systems glitched like they were drunk on bad data. "Are we looking at a battleship?" Gray asked. Rill shook his head. "No. I don't even think this is entirely a ship. It's part machine, part something else. Some of this isn't built, it's grown." Myera stared at it through the screen, and for a moment her breath caught. It was shaped like a blade. Not just a metaphorical one. A literal, enormous sword, forged in space, its edges bristling with ancient metal, broken satellites, and shattered bones of long-dead fleets. It was beautiful and horrifying. Like something you'd see in a dream right before death. Then it moved. Not toward them. Not away. It rotated, slow, deliberate, and a hatch opened on its side, revealing a dim corridor lit by flickering red lights. An invitation. Rill looked ready to puke. Nope, not doing it. This is how every horror story starts." Myera stood. "You don't have to." She looked at Gray. He was already moving toward the gear locker. "Of course you're going," Rill muttered. "Insane. Both of you." Inside the mysterious ship, the air felt heavy, like the walls remembered pain. Myera and Gray stepped cautiously through the narrow corridor, weapons drawn, armor humming quietly. No resistance, no signs of life, just silence and shadows. But there were markings on the walls, etched symbols that looked like human writing, only older. Crude. Scarred into the metal like someone wanted them to last forever. Myera ran her fingers over one of them. Her translator implant struggled for a second before offering a clunky interpretation. Blood answers blood. They reached what looked like a command deck, though it didn't have the usual chairs and panels. Instead, a throne of twisted steel stood at the center, surrounded by holographic displays that activated as soon as they entered. A figure stood up from the throne, not a hologram. A real human. Tall, gaunt, pale skin stretched over a body laced with strange tech. His eyes were all black, no whites, no pupils, just two voids. But Mara knew that look. Not madness, control. He didn't speak with his mouth. His voice came through every speaker, every implant, every wire in the ship. You heard the signal. Mara nodded slowly. You sent it. We waited, he said. Buried ourselves in time. Let the Empire forget. We watched them kill, enslave, rewrite history. We gave them every chance to rot alone. They didn't take it. Gray stepped forward. Who are you? The man tilted his head. Or maybe the creature. Or maybe both. I am the last echo of old Earth. My crew, we are what remains of the Resistance. We left before the final cleansing. Built this place from broken dreams and dead stars. And now, his voice sharpened. Now we remember everything. Maera took a step closer. We want to fight with you. The Empire is bleeding us dry, but if you're really human, if there's even a spark left of what we used to be, you'll know we're worth standing for. The man didn't answer right away. He walked slowly toward a wall and touched it. A panel opened, revealing what looked like an old Earth flag, burned, faded, but real. Then he looked at her. We do not fight for the living, he said. We fight for the forgotten, and the Empire is already dead. It just doesn't know it yet. It was hard to breathe inside that ship, not because of the air. It was filtered, crisp, even cleaner than anything the Wanderlight could provide. No, it was something else. The atmosphere in there carried weight, history, anger, vengeance, and maybe underneath all of that, grief. Maera had never felt so small, not even when she was a kid, hiding under floorboards while Imperial soldiers stomped through her village, dragging out elders and setting fire to homes like they were cleansing a virus. Back then, she'd cried, begged for help. No one came. But now, standing in front of a man, if he could still be called that, who had watched the same empire slaughter his entire species and live to build a monster ship out of the galaxy's bones. She understood something deeper. This wasn't rebellion. This was resurrection. The man didn't blink, didn't breathe, at least not in any visible way. His presence felt like a cold knife pressed against your neck, never cutting, just reminding you it could. His voice still echoed through the ship, not from his lips, but through every wall and wire. You came seeking an ally. Maera nodded slowly. We did. But you also came with fear. She didn't deny it. Only a fool wouldn't. The man paused, as if measuring her honesty. Then he moved aside, revealing a long corridor behind him. Lights flickered on in sequence down the length of it, revealing rows of pods, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Inside each one was a person, human, sleeping, preserved, frozen in stasis, but alive. Maera gasped. Gray muttered something under his breath that sounded like a prayer. These are your people? She asked. They were, the man said. They still are. When the purge began, we had no way to fight, no fleets, no allies, no hope. So we buried ourselves in the cold, hid in the fold between gravity and time. We became memory. Maera stepped closer to one of the pods. The face inside was peaceful, an old woman, maybe in her 70s, a long scar down her cheek, but calm. You froze a civilization, she whispered. Not a civilization, the voice said. A rebellion, a promise. Gray's eyes narrowed. Then why now? Why wake up now? The man looked towards the stars. Not through a screen, through a raw opening in the ship's hull, a transparent dome of energy holding back the void. Because something woke us. The words hung in the air like ash. Real's voice crackled through the comms. Mara, you're going to want to see this. She tapped her earpiece. Talk. The Empire, they're moving. Massive fleet, way bigger than what we thought. They're heading here. How long? 18 hours, maybe less. But that's not the worst part. Mara tensed. Then what is? They're bringing an Apex AI. Her stomach dropped. The Apex AI wasn't a rumor. It was the Empire's ultimate failsafe, a sentient, emotionless machine designed to calculate and counter any threat. It didn't sleep, didn't doubt, and it had only been deployed twice in the Empire's history. Both times resulted in planetary extinction. If the Empire was bringing that thing out of its cage, they weren't just scared. They were desperate. Back on the bridge of the alien hybrid vessel, Mara turned to the ancient human commander. They're coming for you. The man nodded slowly. Let them come. You don't understand, she said. This isn't just soldiers and guns. This is annihilation. You think you've got some fancy ship and old tech? We don't think, he interrupted. We remember, and we adapt. He walked toward a console and pressed his palm against it. The ship shuddered, like something alive had just woken up. Outside, energy rippled across the hull, and the asteroid field around them began to spin unnaturally. Orbit lines twisted into a spiral pattern that didn't follow any known physics. We have been waiting in the void, he said. Now we reshape it. Suddenly, parts of the ship extended outward, massive panels unfolding like wings, charged with ancient energy. Light bled into the darkness, forming a gravitational net. It wasn't a shield, it was a trap. Myra's voice cracked. You're planning to take on the Apex? No, the man said. We're planning to show the galaxy what humanity really is. Hours later, tension hung in the Wanderlight like a noose. The fleet had been detected. 37 capital ships, 7 planetary bombers, and the Apex AI itself housed in a specialized dreadnought called Vigilance Eternal. Mara watched the display as red dots flooded the holographic map. They weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to wipe out a ghost. Inside the vessel, activity surged. The frozen rebels were not just waking. They were integrating. Each one stepped out of their stasis pods and walked like they remembered exactly where they'd left off. Technicians reconnected to strange consoles. Soldiers retrieved hybrid weapons from walls that opened with their fingerprints. There was no panic, no confusion, just focus. Gray pulled Mara aside. You feel it? She nodded. They're not just fighting back. They've already started winning. But then something unexpected happened. One of the human rebels, younger looking with cybernetic arms and a long gash across her neck, approached Mara. You're the outsider leader, she said. Her voice was blunt, clipped. We need your help. Mara blinked. You sure about that? You're still human. You remember pain. That makes you valuable. Gray chuckled under his breath. Hell of a welcome speech. But Mara followed the woman into a chamber deep in the ship's core. Inside, the energy was different. The floor was covered in symbols, not written but carved in low hums, resonating with frequencies. At the center was a machine, part engine, part mind. It pulsed like a heart. This is the core memory, the woman said. Everything we are is stored here. History, tactics, language, trauma. Mara stared at it. Why show me this? Because you're going to carry a piece of it. What? The rebel touched the side of the machine, and a light flared between her and Mara. You're going to be our envoy, our voice to the galaxy. If we die, you won't forget. The energy surged into Mara's chest before she could argue. She screamed, not from pain, but from understanding. 1,000 voices slammed into her brain. Images, memories, sounds, Children screaming, earth burning, ships falling, laughter in broken bunkers, the taste of ash. When it stopped, she dropped to her knees, gasping. The woman placed a hand on her shoulder. You felt it now. Maera didn't speak for a long time. Then she looked up and whispered, We deserved better. The woman nodded. We still do. As the Empire's fleet dropped out of hyperspace, the stars warped and scattered. The Vigilance Eternal led the charge, its surface sleek and smooth, covered in anti-gravity plating and energy fields. The Apex AI activated, its consciousness spanning hundreds of miles, touching every ship, every crew member. It scanned the field. No resistance detected, no life forms large enough to threaten. Then the voice came. You forgot us. The words weren't broadcast on frequencies. They arrived inside the Apex AI's logic core. We are not anomalies. We are memory incarnate. And then the trap activated. The gravitational spiral around the ancient vessel snapped into place, pulling 3 Imperial destroyers inward. They didn't collide. They folded, crushed into singularities without ever touching anything. The Apex AI immediately recalculated. Probability tables shifted, weapons charged, commands went out, and the humans responded. From behind asteroid shadows and artificial black holes, secondary human ships decloaked, not warships, evolution engines, part organic, part machine, capable of adapting mid-battle. Their hulls rippled, growing new armor as weapons fired. Each shot from the Empire met a new defense. Then, the humans launched their own counterattack, not with missiles, with memories. Encrypted psychic pulses hit the Imperial crews, flashbacks of Earth's burning skies, images of human children being dragged from homes, civilians begging for mercy. It wasn't just psychological warfare. It was a weapon of remembrance. Officers froze, pilots panicked. One of the bomber ships turned its guns on its own escort. Inside the Apex AI, confusion surged. This wasn't a battle. This was judgment. The AI attempted to adapt, but something was wrong. Its data streams were being corrupted, not by code, but by emotion. Maera's presence, her link to the core memory, had activated a pulse that embedded chaos into the machine's cold logic. She was broadcasting pain. Real, raw, and very human. The AI tried to quarantine the feed. It failed. It began to feel, and that broke everything. One by one, the Empire's ships lost cohesion. Their order dissolved into panic. The Vigilance Eternal began spinning, caught in a loop of corrupted commands. The Apex AI began to shut itself down, rather than continue experiencing the agony flooding its systems. Maera stood on the command deck of the Wanderlight, her face lit by the glow of collapsing Imperial data. They tried to erase us, she whispered. Now we erase them. Beside her, the ancient commander looked pleased, but not triumphant. This is just the beginning, he said. The galaxy will ask what happened here. Let them ask. Let them remember. Let them fear us again. And as the Empire's last ship detonated in a silent burst of white, the stars around them began to hum, softly, like a lullaby written in fire. The humans had returned, and they were no longer asking permission. The debris floated in silence. Where once 37 Imperial warships had cast their black shadows across the stars, now there was only dust, broken hulls, and drifting corpses. The Vigilance Eternal, the pride of the Empire, had cracked open like a rotten fruit,